Hey, everybody, it's Thursday. That means it's time for the Art Fight podcast. Brian, here we are. I'm not even going to talk about what's been going on, but here we are. Because why? Because we win, because we fight back, Brian. We don't give up. We fight back. It's the Art Fight podcast. And this week, we're happy to bring back a special guest. I didn't even know we were going to hook up with Paul again, but Paul's been on the show once before. I saw his new single was coming out tomorrow and reached out on Instagram, and it just turned out to be the right guest at the right moment. So, Paul Horton, thank you for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. My schedule was clear.
Well, what's it like? We were talking about that a minute ago when we were in the green room, and I mentioned, what a weird year it is to be a musician who's used to touring a lot. We don't have to spend a whole lot of time talking about 2020 now that it's 2021, but you want to tell us a minute about like what's your life been like since we had you on the show last?
The last gig I did was like March 10th of 2020. It was in Manchester, England. We flew back to New York, and then 2 days later, the NBA canceled their season. And then we had one show that we were going to do there, and that got canceled, and we flew back Friday. And then that was the 13th, which after that. So since then, I was on tour with Brittany Howard, and she did a in-studio thing in Nashville at Blackbird in like June. And then we recorded some stuff for Save the Stages and various other things at the Ryman in like August, I think. And those are the last two times that I've performed with other human beings.
I was going to say,
besides my family.
You're sounding like, and that is the last time I ever spoke to another human. August 2019. Yeah. But it sounds like it's kind of more or less the case, right? I mean,
yeah.
I've got so many, we all do, right? So many friends that are people that live on the road, or require things to be happening. And it's been forcing a lot of strange adaptations, or in your case, kind of like, I guess a good opportunity to make some new music and release some stuff and maybe like woodshed a little bit, but it's like, okay, how long?
Yeah, it's a little strange too, because since we've moved down here in like August of 2019, September-ish. I think it was August 2019. We moved to Florida, and between that and the start of the pandemic, I've been connecting like maybe 3 times with local musicians here. So meaning going to see shows between August and that March. Like I think I went out like 3 times because I was on the road a lot. So I would pop into town, and when I was in town for like 2 weeks or whatever, I'd try to go and connect with the local musicians because I was new to the area. Yeah. And so when the pandemic happened, I really had made contact, like visibly, said hi to them, like maybe 2 people, 2 or 3 people. So it's kind of weird because even if I was in Nashville, at least, there might be some outdoor, safe social distance performance I could do.
Hey, listen, Paul, let me just tell you something though. Sorry to cut you off, Joe, but I just gotta say, the irony does not escape me that, while on one hand, I'm sympathetic, right? Like you're kind of put out to pasture in this weird way right now. And I hate that for you. But, when you think about, I don't know, me, Paul, I was shut down and kept from playing in a perfectly good non-pandemic time. Right. I think the last time I ever saw you in person, you came out to Minerva.
Right.
And they shut me down, Joe. I got turned off.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because of the pandemic?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like at least he's getting shut down for like huge global reasons. I'm getting shut down pre-pandemic for just somebody's opinion.
True.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
True.
That's hilarious.
I just wanted to throw that at myself real quick.
At Minerva, huh?
Yeah. They didn't like what I was doing.
I thought it was a good set too. But
what did they want? Did they want country?
No, they just wanted something other than what I was doing.
Okay.
Yeah. And it wasn't like, I mean, look, I've been kicked out of, back in the early 2000s, we got banned from Mercy Lounge, banned from, like, we got all the experimental groups that I was in. We were not done until we were banned from places. Right. And then, and that was like a thing. It was kind of fun for us to just go kind of terrorize the place or whatever. You know, we've all done it in our own ways, but yes, anyway, without getting into too much of that, I'm used to getting shut down, but this was just based on artistic merit, which I can't accept. So sorry you're put out, Paul, but I mean, you know, could be worse. Could be you're not doing anything worthwhile.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. To be in demand and not able to do it till the pandemic clears up, it could get worse.
Right. True.
So anyway, but in the meantime, you know, you are adapting, you are changing around. Tell us about the new project, and I'm especially interested to hear, how did you record all this? Did you do it just at your house, or what's up?
So I had been working on a full-length album for YK Records.
That's an indie label here in Nashville.
And when the pandemic happened, I was having a hard time completing it. And then right around June or July, I decided, you know what, whatever the album is going to end up being, I can't finish it right now. So I started working on the EP. The EP had a few things, like maybe one or two tracks from like previous year, but the majority of it I started making in June of last year. Right on. And then Michael who runs YK, he was like, well, if you're hitting a bump in the road with the album, why don't you just send me the EP and we can put that out and come back to the album at another time. I was like, okay, that works for me, because working on the EP helped a lot last year. Just processing and working stuff out.
Right. I think that's been a huge thing for a lot of artists in all mediums right now, is having this whole thing is meant sort of shrinking down the scope of things to feel incrementally sort of manageable. It's not the time. Everything is so uncertain. You don't even know who you're really writing to or what you're feeling, or I don't know. It's like everything's so mushy. So it feels better to make music in smaller batches, I think, right now.
Yeah. And it was also comforting to me because the album, I was trying to experiment with some stuff. But with this EP, it was just like I wanted, it wasn't so much experimentation, it was just more like stuff that just not comfort. It wasn't like, maybe it was just like comfort sounds.
Yep.
Like just stuff that I could just like, zone out to or what have you, but it wasn't more on the experimental side. And I like that a lot.
Yeah, I do a lot of just sort of, I'll make a beat or something and just put it on. If it's something I can just have on and it doesn't bother me and it's been kind of rolling for 10, 20 minutes, it's like, oh, maybe that's a thing. It's a different, it's not like I'm trying to excite myself with a lot of variation and a lot of craziness. It's more like a kind of meditation, I guess.
Yeah, something. That's what it was. That's what it was, like really meditative. That's the perfect word for me personally.
Can you tell us a little bit about like what are the nuts and bolts of like how you've recorded that project? I mean, are you recording at home? What are you using to record? You mentioned Ableton earlier. Is that the platform you're on? Like what's going on?
Yeah, it's mainly Ableton and SP4 and there's an iPhone app called Koala. And those are the three things that I use to make it. So I have Rhodes here. I have a whirly, I have a drum set, and I have a guitar. And so some of the things include elements of that. Some of it is samples that I've chopped up. I've got drums here, and I've started to work on like a drum library for myself. But I did use a little bit of Derek Phillips's beatbox drum sound library, and a great producer and electronic musician in Nashville known as Brainweight, Caleb Brainweight, and he sent me some raw drums to sample and chop up.
Killer.
And I used that and a whole bunch of different stuff. Just found sounds. I just like, tried to mess with sound design a little bit because I've never done that before. Not really. And
is that part of the album or is that part of the EP?
It's that's part of the album, but some of those I use some of those techniques on the EP a little bit.
Is some of that sound design stuff some of the experimental stuff you were talking about on the album?
That's on the album. Yeah.
What's the other experimental stuff that you were doing on the album that you sort of like have put on the back burner while you're working on your EP?
Well, like there's some stuff that I have a Digitac by Electron, and like I have like a Tim Kaiser instrument. This thing.
Shout out to Tim Kaiser.
Yeah, and just sampling this, running it through the Digitac and then the SP, and trying to just get weird sounds and popping open the Rhodes and sampling that, running it through some pedals and running it through some plugins. And
people don't realize too that like, so Joe, I don't know if you're familiar with the SP404, but it's like, it's kind of a small sampler Roland that's, I guess it's pretty old now, right? I mean, but it's just got a sound that is unmistakable and a workflow that's real simplified, and it's just a cool box. And then, so it's cool that you're straddling, obviously the past and the future, but I've got, sitting right here, I've got an Octatrack, and that's what I do. I went hard. I just put out a double EP using all the stuff I was sort of making in here. And the Electron universe can be a sort of a mind expansive thing, and also a bad trip, right? Like it's depends on, you got to really know. It's similar to Ableton in the sense that like it can do whatever you want, man. So you better figure out like some lanes that you want to stay in. And I'm wondering, like, were you able to sort of wrap yourself in any constraints for this project, which by the way has beautiful art, and I wanted to show this here, but.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, right on. That looks great. Who designed that?
That is a combination of the gentleman B-side graphics. I can't remember his first name. There are elements from the album cover. He designed the album cover, but I think Michael Eads, who runs YK, put this single cover together.
It's cool. Right on. It looks really good.
But you were saying, as far as constraints, we hadn't really gotten into it, but I just asked the question about sort of like lanes, because when you're
on the Digitac.
Yeah, and by the way, I want to add too that like I fully appreciate and love the idea of going back through archives of existing tracks, existing stuff that you have, because we all have. It's insane. Like sometimes you find yourself sampling and you're like, I've got like a million things that I took all this care and recording. Like going back through stuff from like, I go back to 2008 even recently and stuff. And I'm like, man, that's a really cool snare sound or whatever. So anyway, I guess with those ingredients and sort of reusing things, and then also like having these tools, like how are you putting constraints around what you're doing, or are you just not even really thinking about it that way?
Well, I guess the only thing I'll say about that is like some days I will decide that I'm not going to sample anything that isn't like either not from a library that's a friend has given me or I haven't created. So there's some days where I'll go out and I'm not going to sample a record or this, weird 1970s Turkish disco album or whatever. And I'll just make sounds here. That's really the only thing. I just try to mix it up whenever I start working on something. But I'm open, like later on in the day, if I'm like, well, this isn't working, then I'll move on to something else that will spark it. And I may end up sampling something, but whatever, I try to have the initial thing like be different from day to day. And if it ends up somewhere else, then that's fine. The Digitech is interesting because, like you said, Brian, I don't know if it lends itself to an easy workflow, but once you find that thing, then it can really spark some really nice stuff. For the album, I have some things that I've messed with as far as like getting a tape loop type sound on the Digitech.
Uh-oh. Do we have a
Paul,
drop?
you're frozen on your screen right now if you can hear us.
And no audio coming through.
We can't hear you and you're frozen. So a lot of times that's just an internet stream thing. So hopefully it'll crack here in a minute and you'll come back on.
Well, we were just talking about the Electron workflow, and I know that that's kind of nerding out with some people, but I think that in any medium that you work in or whatever you do, there's always going to be some harder than it needs to be path that you can choose to take or not,
right?
With whatever you're making,
Yeah. Well, it's the thing too. It's, people have to understand that, back to the pandemic that, we used to get in a room full of people to do this, and you'd have, 2 or 3 guys in there with you, perhaps. I mean, there's different ways to do it, but you might have 2 or 3 other people playing, instruments and, an engineer or 2 maybe, and a producer and things like that, depending on what you're doing. But to be all by yourself doing all the roles, the workflow becomes really crucial, because if you're not operating sort of with a really efficient setup and a really efficient way of going, okay, tick the boxes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then that's all the difference between whether you get 4 tracks recorded this morning or just one drum track that you hate. You know what I mean?
It's like, you try to you have to have a factory and a playground at the same time.
And you've got to keep them both in your own head when you're trying to make music like this all by yourself. It's very difficult, and it's actually, I understand why it's attractive to sort of get away from the computers and get back into machines, when it comes to making music. All right, Paul's back with us. Hey, Paul, we were just talking about how the can you hear me, man?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good. We were just talking about
talking about you, Paul.
Yeah, it's strange. I don't know where, and here you are. but we were just talking about how the workflow thing, why it's so important. We were just kind of saying, for people who don't know, all this stuff is a bit, they're not musicians, they're not recording records in their house. The whole idea of the workflow, it's the difficulty of being in a room by yourself, and now you're the engineer, you're the producer, you're the musician, you're everything, and being able to set up an efficient way to do all those things together well, it makes all the difference between being able to be efficient with the time that you have and actually getting a project done, because it's a huge amount of work to do for just one person.
Right. That's true. That's true. Yeah, if the guy that I bought this from, the day I bought it in Nashville, he was like, "Yeah, man, I just could not connect with this box."
Yeah,
it's like, it looks neat, it does neat stuff, but I don't.
And, man, it's like trying to learn German, which I tried to do, and even I don't believe in ancestral memory at all, because I had nothing to. I took 2 semesters and failed in my 30s. I was trying hardcore to learn it. Electron, albeit not German, is definitely it's one of those things where you're in or you're out, or if you have the patience to just break through and not, you can't expect. It's the first. I'll put it this way. You can put, I feel like I'm sure you're the same, Paul. Like, you can open up anybody's sampler or anything, and you can probably figure out how to make it emit sound within a reasonable amount of time, even if it's not elegant. This is the first thing this Octatrack is the first thing I've ever had in 20 plus years of making music where I was like, okay, I'm going to do the no manual test, pull the thing out, set it down. I'm like, okay, all right. And I could not, it took me like forever to figure out how to even just get sound to happen. You know what I mean? So it's a weird thing to get started on, but once you get it, then it's like, I don't know. It's kind of, I guess it's probably like doing DMT or something. Like once you're on the other side of it, like you're like, oh, that's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Right.
That's how it's supposed to be. The elves live here, Brian. The elves live here.
Man. Oh God. So
you're
funny.
The trespasser, Brian.
Well, man, Paul, like you got to know that like you're one of my favorite artists that are around right now, much less in Nashville or pretending to be in Nashville as you are or whatever, man. I'm a huge fan of what you've done and how you've gone about it, and you've brought this you have a way of putting jazz with electronic experimentation and hip hop tradition and whatever else, putting it all together in this way that's just the right. It's a very acute balance, I think, that you strike, man, because it's not like in the 90s there was like jazz infused hip hop or what, but it's like that's it. You're in like another dimension compared to the immediacies of that cliche maybe that we all kind of came from in a lot of ways, but now you're able to put it together in this way that I don't think many people can. And it's kind of like we have a lot of fight fans as audience members, and we compare martial arts to this. And I really feel like you're a complete, we would say like a complete mixed martial artist. Like you have the wrestling, you've got the striking, you've got the the good coaching, whatever it is you've had. But like it's a particular resonance of your work that comes across because you do have authentically all of these disciplines.
Oh man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. I think around 2007, I decided specifically like that year that all the different stuff that I enjoyed listening to and trying to for whatever reason I didn't end up playing that stuff live. I was like, I want to play some of these things live. I want to try to bring more of the other things that I love into the music that I make, because for a long time I was just really focused on just like improvisational like music, just making improvisational music. Yeah, I tried to branch out, and that just opened up a lot of pathways up here in my mind to try some different stuff. I'm still learning, of course, like everybody, but I do feel like I finally, after 13 years, I have discovered my voice as far as electronic music and sampling and all that stuff goes. And now I just want to develop it. Like I found it, and now I wanted to. It took me all that time to just find it. Now it's sharpening it, and so yeah, that's. But I appreciate the kind words, man. One of the people that really, and he's on this EP a little bit, is Scott Martin, drummer. When I first moved back to town, I guess, or to the area in 2005, he was playing primarily under the name Hobble Dions. And
I remember that.
I remember he did a show. I saw him one time by accident at Grimey's, and he was playing before someone at like an afternoon Grimey show inside. I was like, what is this guy? What is this guy doing? What is this? And then I saw him at Betty's opening for like Jack Silverman or somebody. And I was like, this guy's, because to me, Scott was like, he was doing that thing that you're talking about. Like he was mixing in everything in a very genuine and honest and organic way. Just like out stuff, hip hop, improvisational noise. Mm-hmm. It was all there. And it was just him, a drum set, and an MPC 1000.
Wow.
And at least the 2 times I saw him, I tried to catch him. Actually, I did catch him one other time at a house show. It was when Dark Matter was over there in it wasn't far from like where Little Hamilton used to be, that place, but it was off of Nolensville, I think. Mm-hmm. Kind of where Lehman Drugstore is now. It was like in that neighborhood, and there was a house show that Dark Matter, I guess they were renting this house, and they were just doing, it was a falling apart, but they were just doing noise shows there and whatever. And he did a solo set there, and it wasn't with drums or anything. It was a whole different thing. I was like, so he's one of the people locally that really kind of inspired me to experiment with different stuff.
You mentioned like making lots of improvisational music, but how did that background, like how does that still inform like your work, like composing and producing, these different pieces for these projects that you're making?
Sometimes it'll end up being something like a track where I'll hit record and just play, and I'll force myself not to do any retakes. I'll just like literally improvise every part of it. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes it'll be like I'll have like a piece, and then I'll improvise some lines on it on piano, or I'll improvise a drum pattern.
Ah, cool.
Or what have you. Something like that.
I wish we could play stuff on this so people could just hear it, but laws and things.
Mm-hmm. And so the what's the name of the new single, Paul?
Freedom Love.
Freedom Love. Oh yeah, and you got that cover, Brian? Yeah, cool. That's a rad cover. And then that'll come out tomorrow, right? And now, how does that come out? Like when you put out a single, you guys just putting it out as a digital single, and then like maybe the EP will be on vinyl or something? How are you guys releasing all this?
Right now, it's gonna digital single, Bandcamp, and then it'll end up on the streaming places.
Right.
And then we have another single coming out that I can't remember when, but it'll come out in a couple of weeks, I think.
Mm-hmm. Are you gonna make any videos for this stuff? Because it seems
I'm working. Yeah, I'm working on 2. I'm working on one that's almost done for Freedom Love. I was hoping I would have it done by tomorrow, but I don't think it will be.
How are you doing that?
How am I doing it?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna film. If you saw the trailer for the single that was on Instagram, I mean, I just filmed that myself. So
right on.
I just get a tripod and set up somewhere for that particular one. For the other one, Dara Tucker is on this EP, and there's a track that she's gonna be featured on as a single. And I have an idea. I have a concept, and I'm not gonna be in the video, but I'm just gonna use one of my kids. And I have a concept, and I'm gonna try and film it over the next couple of weeks. We'll see.
Are they union, Paul? Are they union?
Well, we don't talk about that. Pending.
SAG. I think they have SAG cards.
Yeah. I guess when you already are paying to keep this human being alive, it feels like you don't really have a job. So
you don't really have a job.
Got a job for you. You want to cut the grass, or you want to work on a music video?
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah. So, did you guys cut grass when you were kids? And did you try to get out of it when, like, on the hot days and stuff?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I
remember one time the grass got really long, and I just mowed my name in the backyard and showed my mom, and she wanted to murder me. But anyway, so yeah, put your kids to work for sure. I know that you've got like a lot of I think you've got a voice in that way too, right? Visually and a sense for all that too. So I look forward to seeing how that all shakes out. So if people don't realize, we had about 14 hours of technical difficulties before we started the show. And look, I'm not naming names, right? I'm just saying it happened. Let's just acknowledge it happened.
The thing happened.
So here's the thing. I feel like we're kind of like on the edge of like, you ever take, it's kind of like you took bunk acid when you were 17. You didn't realize till 4 a.m. Like,
Brian's had a lot of bad trips, y'all.
No, you don't have a bad trip on bunk acid. It's just somebody sold you something that doesn't work, and it takes you a long time to figure it out. So then by the time you actually get into anything, it's like, all right, I should have just gone to sleep.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like, Joe, I know you're pushing along right now. And but here's the thing. Is there a way, Paul, that we can have you back on, and maybe on the other side of maybe some of these things coming out, maybe the video and things, even if it's just for a pop in, right? Just, yeah. I feel like we didn't really catch our groove fully today, but it does not mean that we would not love to try again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just let me know, man.
Thanks for reworking your setup like 100 times. And if it doesn't work out, that's fine. We'll figure it out.
Really quick, Paul, what is the upcoming schedule? The first single's coming out tomorrow on Friday. The next single, Friday the 5th of February. Mm-hmm. There'll be another single out, and then the EP will come out in
March. The first week in March.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm almost.
So you got a big month coming up. You're gonna have like two singles, and then drop the EP.
That's it.
Killer.
That's it.
That's awesome. And so I've got the URL on the screen here for folks, but it's no-stress.me. And that'll jump you to kind of wherever you need to go to get to all the things. So that's really good. And, by the way, like I know you addressed this on that actual webpage in terms of like no stress and this sort of, easygoing concept, but I felt like I identified with it. We used to have a thing called no sweat, where when I lived in New York, we would ride bikes somewhere. We would ride what we called no sweat style, meaning that we didn't want to be drenched in sweat when we arrived at the party we were going to or whatever. We would call it like a no sweat ride. And it's kind of like gliding through life at this threshold, but not exceeding a particular threshold. And I really appreciate the sentiment of no stress. It kind of reminds me of that, but maybe you can tell people real quick what no stress is about.
That's really a very apt description. It's about peace. Peace is a big part, like being at peace or trying to just cut out as much stress that the stress that you can avoid, that is avoidable, trying to cut that out. Yeah, that's basically where it came from.
Especially with people, right? Like that's mostly solved for us right now. But like as William Burroughs said, if after being in someone's presence you feel like you've lost a quart of plasma, avoid that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe apply that to all things in life, right? Yeah. The no stress mentality I'm a big fan of. Joe is already like halfway there as right now. So that's pretty good. Hey, but so we should probably head on out of here, man. We'll do a little send off, and then we'll talk on the back end of this just for a quick second to say our goodbyes, and we'll be done. But hey, thanks everybody. Make sure you share and subscribe or do whatever the young people say to do. Smash buttons and make sure you go to no-stress.me for those on the audio that will be getting this in the next day. So, Paul, man, really appreciate it. Joe Nolan, thanks for fighting through all of the things.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Appreciate you being on again, brother. We'll get you on again real soon.
Man, thank y'all so much for having me. Appreciate y'all.
You got it.